As you probably know by now, the kids are officially out of school. The weather is definitely hot. Memorial Day is the unofficial start of summer. This year, non-custodial parents, usually dads, may have more time with their kids.
That's right. That's because of a relatively new law in Tennessee that requires judges to give each parent maximum participation in their child's life. Family law attorney Justin Thomas is here to break down exactly what that means. Justin, happy Memorial Day to you.
Glad to have you here with us.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Well, you would think that a judge would do that anyway. How does the new law change things?
Well, obviously the previous law didn't have that language in the statute. So the new law, which went into effect last summer, basically encourages courts to order parents to have that maximum participation in their children's lives. Now, the difference is obviously the courts are still supposed to make a determination based on a child's best interest, but that new language, which was obviously as a result of fathers' advocacy groups, getting that language into the statute, I think is a point to the courts to try to get dads more time with their children.
So, Justin, with all of this in the mind, especially over the past year or so, has there been much fallout? Has there been have there been a lot of people who say, no, we do not like this plan, we do not like this law? What are you hearing out there?
Well, frankly, the law still has to make its way through the court systems. There are not a lot of decisions that have taken into account that new language. One came out in March, the Roundtree case, in which the court did take into account that new language and seemed to indicate that that was a very important step and that courts need to adhere to that new language.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the trial court judges still have a lot of discretion in child custody situations, but I think that new language in the statute is going to push fathers to get more time with their children.
Traditionally, they do not. Traditionally, the mother is given custody and then the father has to deal with maybe every other weekend or just some sort of limited custody. Are there any statistics to show whether that harms children or whether children are benefited if both parents, even though they're living apart, get equal time?
Well, I think anywhere you look with advocacy groups, obviously it's in a child's best interest to have both parents participating in their lives. And the trend nowadays is that fathers are getting more and more time with their children, whereas maybe 50 years ago, it was unheard of to have a stay-at-home dad or a week-on, week-off situation with children.
Right, where a dad might be a single dad.
Correct. Those things are definitely changing, given that a lot of women work nowadays and obviously equal gender roles and things like that.
So life at home definitely has changed these days. Do you expect there to be a lot of resistance out there, though?
I think really where the legal community is at, is particularly from family law attorneys, is how the court's going to interpret that new language. For example, if you're advocating on behalf of a dad, does that language require the courts to give your client 50-50 parenting time, or does it mean that they have to make other adjustments? It's really has to filter its way through the system. Ultimately, the language is vague, and that's what we're all sitting back to see, is how is the court going to handle that language in each particular situation.
How would you want the court to handle it, as someone who I assume has handled divorce situations from both the mother's side and from the dad's side?
Well, I think, every situation is different. So I think painting with any broad brush in any custody situation is not appropriate. The court needs to still, again, determine what's in a child's best interest and look at each particular case. Every parent is different, every child is different, and they need to take that language, and I do think that the courts will consider the language, and it's my opinion that fathers will continue to see more and more time with their children.
And Justin, even before it gets to maybe the court system, mediation, just parents just getting together beforehand, can that help a lot, maybe in some cases?
Absolutely. I tell all my clients, two people will benefit ultimately. If we have a trial, that will be myself and whoever the other attorney is.
Gotcha.
Because it's expensive, it's protracted, it creates a big divide between the parents. Mediation is actually required in divorce situations and is also required when you have a parenting plan. Typically, you'll have to go back to mediation before getting into the court. And what that does is allows parents who know their child, know their situation, to have some control over the process and ultimately make a decision that they know will benefit their child, as opposed to a judge who has never met either party.
It puts the child at the center, or the children at the center, rather than the two parties. Thank you so much.
That helps a lot. Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It is a big issue.
That it is. Well.